so. Because it's a top-down country, as a result of our history, not because somebody wants it to be like this. We have emergency, we have Cold War. I remember we had independence, but we cannot get out of the house because we got curfew. So we have independence, but we have no freedom. So this is the kind of society we have come to in Malaysia. Now, because it's top-down, one of the most important element in this country is called R&D, research and development, which is in a scientific sense. We suggested, a group of us put this across to the National Science and Research Council, the need for not only social science, scientific R&D, we need social R&D. Let me explain briefly. If in science and technology, we produce products and whatnot as a result of the R&D to enhance, to advance society, which is based on the assumption that everything in science can be calibrated, and in the social aspect, we cannot calibrate things. We can only monitor. Now, to monitor is a big exercise. Say, for example, what happens in the society. If you have on TV, Awani or whatever, we have weather station. And then we give, after every news, the weather of the situation in this country. The best you can say is raining here and there. That's what Malaysia is. But can we have a social weather station? Where is the hotspot in Malaysia? Where are the difficulties? What sorts of qualities of life we are experiencing? For 5 minutes. That would open up eyes in Malaysia, the state of our affair.
When we come back, I'd like to talk about how social sciences can be accorded greater official recognition for its contribution to nation building. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are tuning in to the 7th Merdeka Award Roundtable, and I'd like to go to Dato. How do you think that social sciences can be accorded greater recognition for its contribution and expertise in nation building?
Yeah. Well, one way I think is for social scientists themselves to change their mindset. You know, you can do a lot of brilliant research, but it must be translated into policy, into action. It must lead to new methodologies, maybe new theories, link up with international research agencies, be more collaborative, be more proactive, more humanistic. I think social science itself could reinvent itself maybe, and maybe convince policymakers here that we have a very important role to play. And in the context of research on single mothers, I think this is really a crucial new field, because we are actually seeing in front of our own eyes the creation of urban poverty, which is matrifocal, matri-centered towards women. We don't want to reach the stage like in United States, for example, when you have a very wide base of urban poverty amongst African Americans, when even when you open bank accounts, they'll ask for your mother's name rather than your father's name, because the mother is the only permanent figure in the household. So it might lead to this stage when we have to reconsider all projects to be engendered, matrifocal, matri-centered, and also focusing on stratas of population rather than just a general mixture. And social scientists themselves have to be very aware and sensitive to these issues, I think.
I'm one of the people here who have not worked with institutions. And because of, I'm doing Indian classical dance, I'm doing, they look at me as kind of, for a long time, someone like a bit of a freak.
Anomalous.
But what happened is
I have
that
another name for that.
but what happened is that
Exotic.
I have work. I recognize that the arts is a means of empowerment,
Yeah.
really. And so I've worked with groups in in a temple in Kuala Selangor, or in Ladang Sungai Chor, or in Kajang, for example, in Sekolah Jenis Kebangsaan Tamil Kajang. And this is very good because it's outside the university. But I was very enlivened when I found that the Kajang school was under the UKM kind of education. Yes, so that's really good. So we're working together in a community, but do not underestimate individuals. How they are doing their own bit, and there are many things, many areas that you can work together to achieve the national goals. And I think also to be a well-integrated individual.
I think this comes back to our topic, which is building bridges and to close the gap between science, natural science,
Correct.
social sciences, dance, heritage, culture. Tan Sri.
I think in order to build these bridges, you have to look at again who produces all these people. I think the universities are producing these people. They're called the non-scientists, the social sciences. But unfortunately, my worry is we must ask the universities whether they are reducing the number of social science undergraduate or not.
Are social sciences on the chopping block in universities?
Well, I know one university is on the chopping block.
Got chopped already.
Yeah, it got chopped, and the number is reduced tremendously. But this again, especially when you are a Mahaguru, you are a professor, you will make sure social sciences tries to quantify its results. And this is the danger when you go poll opinion and so on and so forth. So therefore, this is very important as a social science. We are not an exact science. I studied economics, though a little bit with statistics and economics and so on, and mathematics. So we are not the exact science. It's always the probability. And this is the danger, especially when you are social scientists involving with poll, giving opinion and so on, because it's the word always, whether statistically significant or not. And this is the teaching of social science in the university must be very, very interesting. But I can assure you, as the chairman of the board of University of Malaya, definitely, I think I would support a very good development of social sciences in the university, especially in its research and so on.
Prof, is it time for an official recognition of social
Well,
sciences?
for me, it must begin, again, it's a top-down. We know how NGOs work, nobody listens to them, really, in the end. Most importantly, I think, in the way we divide and devise money for social research, that is very critical. The first recognition is, say, for example, I'm not asking for social science to be given the same amount as the scientists. I think that's a silly suggestion. What it needs is, Lina's case in Kuantan, no scientist can deal with that problem. Without the social scientists, they cannot solve that problem. No amount of Nobel Prize winner can solve that problem. A local understanding of local politics will solve that problem. Now, for me, what it means is this. Every social science, every science research must have a social component, even how minimal, because eventually it's going to be about people. It's eventually going to affect people. Equally, every social science research, especially like urban studies, you cannot do urban studies without understanding the architecture, without understanding environmental issues. So there must be a scientific component. The question is it going to be a science-led study or social science-led study? It must have a science component. But this is never made clearly, whether by MOSTI or by Ministry of Education. MOSTI, the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation, has this science policy which has no social science interest in thrust areas. Are you saying that how important is aerospace engineering compared to ethnic stability in this country? They don't think that way. So I think this is what we have to do. We have to start thinking simultaneously. The scientific issues that we are looking at must have a social science component, especially in a country like Malaysia. I used to make jokes with my engineering friends. I said, when there is a breakout of ethnic riot in Malaysia, you'll be hiding somewhere. They will be looking for me and Professor Wazir or somebody to help. How do we do this? So, what does it mean? In this country, we are not talking about America, we're not talking about UK, we're talking about here. The relevant social science here is a lot more because the nature of our society.
But right now we have to go for the last commercial break, but just stay with us. We'll be back very shortly. Welcome back to the final segment of the 7th Merdeka Award Roundtable on building bridges. How can the arts and social sciences support our national goal? And I'd like to go straight to Datuk Ramli Ibrahim. How can we integrate not only social sciences, but arts, heritage, culture in our everyday life, in our policy making?
Well, I'm not a policy maker. That's the first thing.
How would you like to see it developed?
Well, what happened is, Cynthia, I think even from the level of ministries, the Ministry of Education is not talking to the Ministry of Culture, for example, or Ministry of Culture and Tourism is not talking to MITI or MATRADE, for example. And we all know that when you go to a country, you have to project, you know, the culture open for business, open for a lot of things. These are the areas where the social science is very good at advising the country also. But I would definitely like to see this integration happen from also from the school level, from also actually the city council level, because the city council deal with social environment. The city council also deal with engaging society in parks, in public places, where in malls and all that, where this integration, this diversity is most poignant. And so many we can make examples. You know, for example, it breaks my heart to see that PJ is not also a cultural center, because why is it just concentrated on Kuala Lumpur? Let's spread it out to as many places as possible. So this integration, I would like to see much more pervasive, so that we are not going to be, it's not going to be another burden when we bring people from outside to bring in, and they're not exposed actually to culture, different cultures.
Back to Dato, earlier you mentioned about Georgetown as having some sort of success in terms of integrating culture and development. How do you see that can be implemented across the board?
Well, Malaysia's got to be able to recognize its talent. It's talent-based. There's a lot of talent in Malaysia, and raw talent in the community, which we have to discover and encourage. You know, my American colleagues always tell me that what we have from you is your best talent. What you have from us is our recycled professors. See, doing the circuit. So this is really true. I mean, all our youngsters, after they graduate from Australia or New Zealand or England, they don't want to come home. They just stay there. And these are the best graduates we have. How do we get them to come back, you know? I think we must give more boost to our talent. And even if our young graduates don't want to come back and they're contributing to the world talent, the global pool of talent, we should still have a fair share of what we need here.
But how about our social scientists, our talents? And
Well, for me, I don't see this thing in segregated form. State, society, market, this nexus operates all the time, 24 hours. The market is always hungry. The state is always trying to control. Society is always confused, don't know what's going on. So therefore, this is the argument that we have. This is the situation that we have to do. But I think the most important part is we know now that it's very important for the state or the government now, as we say, to take the initiative. People will follow. People will understand that this is what we need. So I think this is where the difficulty comes, because whom the state consult become very critical in the way we decide our future. So this is where some unhappiness has, among some of us, that, we have this pool of professors, Majlis Professor Negara, and so on and so forth. What happens to them? So I think this is what we are looking at. Not so much integration of science and arts in some level. Yes, it is, but another level is integration of this understanding of the society. Yes.
And scientists.
Yeah.
Seri.
Well, our topic was to build bridges. I think we have already the bridges. But if you look at the olden days, the bridges, some of them are made from ropes, so it's goyang, it's shaking, and some from pokok kelapa, coconut trunk. You've got to use walking stick to help this. Must bear that in mind. It's not a perfect bridges. So now you have to prepare perfect bridges. But if you look at it, where's the best way? If you ask me quite frankly, it starts from kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And then it starts from schools. And then the university and postgraduate work research. And when we understand better, we should learn our history, the constitutions, what is the social contract, and so on. But until today, I couldn't get 5 professors, 3 from Malaysia, 2 from Sabah and Sarawak, and should include at least 1 Malay, 1 Chinese, 1 Indian, 1 Sabahan, 1 Sarakian, to write what is the social contract that we have in mind. And nobody has come forward to say that. I think we have to look for the grant. What is our social contract? Because the social contract is supposed to build that bridge. The shaking bridge perhaps should be tightened up, screw nuts and bolts and so on. But today, the education in our country is very democratic, You look at it, you get at the